Hello, everyone. You might be able to tell we've gone back in time a little bit. This is the start of a new project. Let's play Morrowind. This was my first Bethesda game, and to this day is one of my absolute favorites on any platform of all time. Let me turn the sound down just a little bit so that you can hear me. First, a comment on the state of the channel. You may wonder where I've been, what's going on with the Skyrim playthrough, why I'm starting a new project. I'll answer those questions as best I can. What I've been up to, really, 4 things. First, I've been overwhelmingly busy with my real job. Just took a trip to Washington, D.C., to the patent office to do some interviews with patent examiners. That's taken up a lot of my time. Second, however, I have been farming random encounters in Skyrim off-screen, just figuring that if and when I finally do find Dawnguard Novice Hakar, I can start the recording and proceed from there. Third, I've been playing around in Fallout 4, mainly experimenting with survival mode, trying out builds for my eventual playthrough of that, which, remember, isn't going to come until we get the official word from Bethesda that the game is well and truly finished, much like they gave with Skyrim after patch 1.9. And fourth, I've been playing a little bit of the new Doom, which is just revelatory in its awesomeness. I probably won't be doing a playthrough of that on the channel just because I like to be as proficient as I can. That's kind of my shtick. And I just don't have the reflexes to be particularly good at Twitch shooters anymore. But Doom is a lot of fun, and I highly recommend it. But that said, I have farmed and farmed and farmed for Hakar. I still haven't found that particular random encounter. When I do, we'll update the Skyrim playthrough and get back to it. But in the meantime, I felt compelled to put something else up on the channel, and the Witness isn't working today. I did update my graphics card. It got new drivers when Doom came out, and ever since then the Witness hasn't worked. So I figured I would go kind of back to my roots. Those of you who have been with me the longest know that the first thing I did was Thief, and my channel got established, such as it is. It's still very small, of course. But it got established because there was really a vacuum out there in terms of really good, knowledgeable Thief playthroughs. I kind of had my own niche with that game. Nobody else was really playing it. Lately, I've been on games like Fallout 3 and Skyrim, which of course have tons of playthroughs out there, by which I hope to differentiate myself by being the most knowledgeable and most competent. But with Morrowind, I feel like I'm doing a little bit of both. There are some good in the sense of being entertaining Morrowind Let's Plays on YouTube. I particularly enjoy watching Gix's. Samuel Online's isn't bad either. But Gix's is blind, which obviously indicates a lack of knowledge, and Samuel's isn't quite completionist and doesn't really get into the nuts and bolts of the game the way I like to do. So I think there's a real vacuum on YouTube and really on the entire internet in terms of good, competent Morrowind guides. Now, I've partially written one that's on Game FAQs. The reason it hasn't been updated in a while is because with some fairly persistent feedback from readers, I have decided to retool some things, modify some strategies, mostly in terms of whether or not we kill innocent NPCs and whether or not, well, not whether or not, because there will always be some, but trying to minimize save scumming at least in terms of getting through combat. And finally, because that, as it was initially written, had a couple of what I, in retrospect, consider to be pretty glaring oversights. Namely, it didn't cover the official plugins, and it was just a little bit too hard to follow, and I hate to say it, but a little bit too detailed. So I figured as I did rewrites with my new decisions, feeling a little bit more knowledgeable and more competent, I might as well start a YouTube playthrough too. So let's get started. The easiest way for you to play the same way I am playing is simply to download Morrowind off of GOG.com. I recommend that pretty dramatically over Steam, simply because it comes bundled in addition to the 2 expansions, Tribunal and Blood Moon, with all of the official plugins, most of which don't really matter. They tweak some ambient sounds, they add one mission called Siege at Firemoth, the Entertainers adds a little bit of additional ability to make money in taverns. The big ones, for my money, are the Master Index and the Adamantium Armor. The Master Index lets you collect the 10 Propylon indices for Vardenfell Island, and with the help of Fulm's Mirel at the Caldera Mages Guild, transmute them into a single Master Index, at which point you can teleport at will between all 10 Dunmer strongholds, which is pretty awesome. The other one, well, really, I guess there are 3 big ones. There's that one. There's Adamantium Armor, which gives you a medium armor set, which, as it should be, is better than the best set of light armor, but still not as good as the best set of heavy armor, which is, of course, Daedric. And third are area effect arrows, which can be pretty cool and can really make the difference in a big fight. So I recommend you go to GOG.com, get their version of the Game of the Year edition of Morrowind, because it comes with all of the official plugins as well as the 2 expansions. And when you fire it up, just when the launcher's up, you'll have to go to data files and explicitly enable all of the plugins other than the 2 expansions, which I recommend you do. All right. That'll get you to the intro screen. Let's talk settings. I like to put the difficulty on 100. The only thing I can really verify for sure that this affects is combat. The UESP says that it affects everything, but I'm not really sure that's true, because lots of things simply exist with formulas. And now it's entirely possible that it does, but regardless, as is always my mean, I put difficulty at 100 at the very start. Menu help delay, I'm not even sure what that does. But menu transparency, I don't like it transparent. I put because see, it gives you that, which is just fucking hard to read. So just keep it fully opaque so you can see your menus. AI distance, I like to slide all the way over to far. That's almost a difficulty thing in that, it determines when enemies become aware of you. But I think it's important. I'll leave on autosave when rest. We should turn off always use best attack. There's a pretty cool, the other Elder Scrolls games actually do keep it. They've been accused of stripping it out, but I think the different varieties of power attacks you can do with directional movements are essentially the same thing. But in Morrowind, it was the first game where you could do different attacks. Specifically, with every weapon, you can do a chop, a slash, or a thrust, which are exactly what they sound like. And they'll be more or less effective depending on what the weapon is. Spears will do almost no damage chopping or slashing, but thrusting does monumental damage. And axes do a lot of damage when chopping, almost no damage when thrusting, etc., etc. I like to turn it off because I like to have control over what kind of attack I do. If I'm fighting something easy, like a mud crab, then I will take that opportunity to use my weaker attacks in order to get more skill experience with the weapon I'm training on. Unlike Skyrim, Morrowind has this in common with Oblivion. When you're leveling a weapon skill, it doesn't take effectiveness into account. It simply tallies the total number of hits you accomplish against an enemy. So you will actually get more experience from killing an enemy more slowly with a weaker weapon than you will with a stronger one. This was also true in Oblivion before they fixed it in Skyrim by taking into account base damage of the weapon you were using. Same is true of armor. You know, in Skyrim, it's amount of damage you absorb with an armor type. In this one, it's simply the number of hits you take. So, if it's something I can easily handle and I'm not afraid of, I'll use a weaker weapon to get more skill experience. On the other hand, say I run into a Dremora Lord, I'm going to want to kill it as fast as possible. And if I just leave this option untoggled, I can simply exercise the option to use whatever attack I have need of, which is pretty great. Turn on subtitles, turn on the crosshair. Let's go to the audio options. I'm going to leave the master volume at full, and voice, and effects, and footsteps. I'm going to put music about here, because Morrowind has a great soundtrack. I toy with the idea of turning the music off and just going with the effects, but I like the soundtrack too much. I can't bring myself to do that. Controls. I don't think there's anything you should need to change here, except it starts with ridiculously low mouse sensitivity. If you move it about to the middle of the bars, everything should be alright. No need for a joystick, no need for inversion. Let me make sure my key mappings are okay. I do not, well, mouse 0. I'm not even sure what the difference between use and activate is. I guess I'll figure it out. That's fine. That's fine. Yep, that's good, that's good, that's good. That's good. That's fine. What I really need is, see, quick save and quick load. There we go. Alright, video options. I'm just doing max resolution. You're gonna want the maximum view distance. If you're on an older machine, I will actually recommend tanking your resolution, playing in windowed mode, turning off real-time shadows, whatever you have to do in order to keep your view distance maxed out, because there's nothing worse than hearing that battle music start and not being able to track down where the fucking enemy coming at you is. So with all that, we can go ahead and quickly watch the intro cutscene. Each event is preceded by prophecy, but without the hero, there is no event. Zurin Arctus, the Underking. In the waning years of the Third Era of Tamriel, a prisoner born on a certain day to uncertain parents was sent under guard without explanation to Morrowind, ignorant of the role he was to play in that nation's history.
They have taken you from the Imperial City's prison, first by carriage and now by boat. To the east, to Morrowind. Fear not, for I am watchful. You have been chosen.
Many fall, but one remains.
Wake up. We're here. Why are you shaking? Are you okay? Wake up. Stand up. There you go. You were dreaming. What's your name?
I have no mods installed, so name yourself. I'll just go with Travis. It really doesn't matter.
Well, not even last night's storm could wake you. I heard them say we've reached Morrowind. I'm sure they'll let us go. Quiet. Here comes the guard.
This is where you get off. Come with me.
W and S move forward and back, A and B move side to side, and the mouse looks around. While it's on pause, I'll just tell you my goal for this particular installment is to explain why I create my character the way I do, get through character creation, and explain the playthrough, and even, yes, do a bit of grinding, which I will do off-screen. I'll say this right now. During my recording hiatus, I've also spent a bit of time studying other YouTube channels and kind of come to the conclusion that my insistence on recording absolutely everything is probably a slavish adherence to the letter of the law rather than the spirit. The spirit being, if this is a walkthrough you're trying to follow, you need to be able to see everything I'm doing so you can follow it. That's pretty basic. But if there's anything the random encounters in Skyrim taught me, it's that you don't need to actually view everything as long as you can understand what's happening and follow it. So with that in mind, I'll be off-screening some things, especially when I feel the need to grind skills. That said, let's talk about skill grinding. I'm going to try to avoid it where I can, but Morrowind and Oblivion both make it unavoidable in some instances. Morrowind especially because the coding is incomplete on certain things, and it's more or less impossible to raise them, quote-unquote, naturally, the way the developers intended, which would leave you with the options of either grinding or training. I don't like to spend money on training. I think it's ridiculous, and that leaves grinding. But when I do grind, I will explain to you how to do it, and then I'll probably do most of it off screen, so you don't have to sit through it, but you will still know what happened and be able to follow the walkthrough accordingly. Let's talk about a couple of other things right now that are going to be a little different than the Skyrim playthrough, and even than the original written version of the Morrowind walkthrough. I've learned a little bit better to deal with the bugs in Morrowind, and one of the biggest are stolen tags. They don't work right, which means that you can't ever really safely steal from shopkeepers, because even if you successfully remain hidden and successfully steal the items out of their shop, let's say you pick up a bottle in Ariel's trade house in Seyda-Neen. You take it over to the Ravir trader in Balmora, and you sell it to him, and everything's fine. And then sometime later, you take another bottle that you honestly picked up in a dungeon full of smugglers you killed. You take it back to Ariel's trade house in Seyda-Neen. You try to sell him the bottle from the smuggler's den. He will declare that you stole the bottle from him and sick the guards on you. So what happens is if you ever steal an item from a shopkeeper, every instance of that item in the entire game world gets a stolen tag on it for that particular shopkeeper. So, what does that leave you with? I say only steal things from shopkeepers that you're actually going to use. Nothing that you intend to sell. That's a little bit of a pain. It means we'll be leaving some things behind, but that's okay. You know, it is what it is, as they say, and it's much better than the alternative, which is, you know, having to keep some kind of log about what you stole from who, so you know who you can and can't sell what to, which is just painful. The second thing also revolves around shopkeepers, and that is we won't be doing Ironborn mode. The reason why is item restocking is also broken in this game, especially as it relates to pickpocketing. After I wrote the first version of the Morrowind guide, I realized that when you pickpocket items from shopkeepers, it breaks the restocking function and they won't ever restock them. So things you need a lot of, like alchemy ingredients and repair hammers and thief tools, will stop restocking if you pickpocket them instead of buying them. That's bad news indeed, which means we've got to spend money on these things. It's the only way to ensure they restock like the developers intended. So Ironborn mode is out. Stealing absolutely everything is out. Of course, we can still steal absolutely everything from people who aren't shopkeepers, who will never have to sell anything to. But that's kind of what you should understand about the playthrough. Other than that, the third thing to know about Morrowind is that unlike its successors, Oblivion and Skyrim, you actually cannot, it is impossible to do every quest in a single playthrough, because some of the factions are actually opposed to each other. There are glitches that let you join 2 of the 3 great houses, but even then you can't join all 3. You can join House Hlalu plus one of the other 2, but you cannot join all 3. There are conflicting quests with the Fighters Guild and the Thieves Guild, and with the Mages Guild and Great House Telvanni, so we can't do everything. But I'm going to do as much as possible for whatever that's worth, and I'm going to try to take the ideal route through the game in order to do it as we become strong enough. Morrowind is kind of like Fallout 4 on survival mode in that the lower levels are brutally hard. Once you hit level 20 or 30, the game becomes cakewalk. It's the way it is. Anyway, let's get on with the business of creating our character. I think that's everything I really need to say about playthrough notes for now. There will be more as things pop up, I'm sure. But let's get going. Right now, we're just an amorphous floating camera. You can't go third-person view yet because you don't know what you look like yet. We also can't save until character creation is over. Now we start on the Imperial prison ship, which is going to disappear from the game as soon as we enter the Census and Excise office in Seyda-Neen. Unfortunately, we can't interact with anything on the ship either, so as cool as some of this stuff looks, there's just nothing we can do about it. It's all gonna disappear. Well, let's just make our way up. You may notice that here at the start of the game, we're moving about half as fast as the average slug.
Get yourself up on deck and let's keep this as civil as possible.
Look up at the hatch and press spacebar to open it. Spacebar activates objects and people you are looking at. Hatch to Seyda-Neen.
This is where they want you. Head down to the dock and I'll show you to the census office.
Sure. Alright.
You finally arrived, but our records don't show from where.
Alright. This is where you choose your race and your sex, both of which matter, so let's talk about that. It doesn't actually show this to you, which is kind of dumb, but you have the classic 10 Elder Scrolls races: Argonian, Breton, Dark Elf, High Elf, Imperial, Khajiit, Nord, Orc, Redguard, and Wood Elf. They each have a set of specials, which can be fall into 3 categories, which I'll talk about in a minute. They each have skill bonuses, and what's not shown that is actually pretty important is they each have different base attributes. Unlike Skyrim, but like Oblivion, in this game there are 8 attributes that determine various aspects of how your character performs. The attributes are strength, endurance, agility, speed, intelligence, willpower, personality, and luck. Let's talk briefly about those attributes. Well, let's not. Not too much anyway. Not yet anyway. In terms of selecting a race, only one attribute matters, and that's endurance. Endurance is the only attribute that has any kind of time sensitivity. It needs to be maxed as early as possible. The reason is endurance determines your health gain per level, and it is not retroactive. What I mean is, every time you level up, you gain 1/10 of your endurance in health. But this is not retroactive. So a higher endurance early will help your character at the end of the game have the most possible health. No matter what race you choose, every character can eventually have 100 in every attribute and 100 in every skill. So skill and attribute bonuses don't really matter. The exception is endurance, because its bonus to your health pool is not retroactive. It needs to be maxed as soon as possible so it's something to be sensitive to. However, it doesn't end up being a deciding factor for me. What we need to talk about are the specials. There are 3 skills don't matter at all, but incidentally, because everything can eventually be 100, and none of that has any time-sensitive aspect to it. So let's talk about specials. There are 3 varieties of specials. There are spells, which are simply spells you can cast for magicka, just like the in-game spells you can buy. There are powers, which are much like spells, except they don't use any magicka and can instead be used once every 24 hours. And there are abilities, which are passive buffs or debuffs, which are always on. Good abilities, along with, to a much lesser extent, powers and spells, are something that does make a difference at the end of the game when everybody's got 100 in all their attributes and skills. So we'll be choosing our race primarily based on who has the best specials. At the end of the game, when every attribute is at 100 and every skill is at 100, there are only a few things that differentiate characters from one another. They are, number 1, good innate abilities, and number 2, derived attributes, such as health, fatigue, magicka, and encumbrance are the 4 derived attributes. Now, no matter what, every character has a maximum fatigue of 400, so it doesn't enter into consideration. Health matters. It's based primarily on your starting endurance and how early you level it up, but the biggest difference by far is in the magicka pool. Depending on the choices you make at character creation, your character can have an effective maximum magicka as low as 100 or as high as 450, which is a whopping difference. And that potential magicka pool is locked in at character creation. Your magicka is equal to your current intelligence multiplied by your magicka multiplier. Most characters you can choose have a magicka multiplier of 1 and a maximum magicka of 100. You can adjust this in 2 ways. You can get a multiplier via your birth sign, which we'll be selecting later, and you can get a multiplier via your race. And to me, that becomes the decision maker. But with that all said, let's talk about the races. You have Argonians. Skill bonuses, don't care. Male or female, largely a cosmetic difference for... Actually, let's talk about male-female first. Male and female, the only difference, really, there are 2 NPCs I can think of that treat you differently based on whether you're a man or a woman. There's Mistress... Oh, now I can't even remember her name. One of the Telvanni masters loves women and hates men. And I actually think that's all. And it doesn't really matter either way. What matters is they have different base attributes. And again, really the only one we care about is endurance. And they vary by race. So I'll explain that to you when I get to the race I'm selecting. So start with Argonians. Argonians are classified as a beast race in this game. Beast races, which the other one are the Khajiit, can only wear a very limited selection of helmets, and they cannot ever wear boots at all. For me, that loss of an equipment slot, actually functional loss of 2 equipment slots, is enough to virtually eliminate them from consideration. I think that's such a huge downside. They'd be very, very hard-pressed to outweigh it, and they really don't. If you look at the Argonian specials, you've got Resist Disease, 75%. But, spoiler alert, fairly early in the main quest line, you become immune to all diseases, which renders that special utterly useless. Now, immune to poison is actually not bad. Innate immunity to a fairly common element is pretty good, but you can get the same thing through enchantments, and it really doesn't outweigh the loss of 2 equipment slots. Water breathing, same thing. This is just a spell which you can actually create at a mage's guild or buy for yourself, making it useless for a racial special. So, Argonians, not great. Khajiit, even worse. Khajiit lose 2 equipment slots. Their specials are 2 spells, Eye of Night and Eye of Fear, which you can create those at a mage's guild. There's no upside at all unless you're really into the roleplay aspect of the Khajiit. Let's talk about Bretons. Bretons are pretty damn good. You could make a very strong case for selecting a Breton. They're one of the 2 races with a magicka multiplier. It's 0.5 times your intelligence. So a Breton has an innate maximum magicka of 150 instead of 100, which is pretty good. They've got 50% magicka resistance. Don't be confused, though. It's not like in Skyrim. That's not 50% resistance to all magic. Magicka is its own element in this game. There are effects that directly damage health, damage fatigue, damage attributes, etc., which this applies to. It does not apply to, say, fire, frost, shock, or poison damage, which are separate, distinct elements from this. But nonetheless, it's a decent resistance. There's certainly no downside to it, and you get it for free. But that's one that you can get through enchantments. Finally, they have the Dragon Skin Power, which is just a 60-second shield spell, which you can get elsewhere. Bretons are good because they have a magical multiplier, and they have no real downsides. So they're pretty strong contenders. Let's look at Dark Elves. They have a power called Ancestor Guardian, which is Sanctuary, 50 points for 60 seconds on self. Now I guess I should talk about what these effects are. Water breathing is exactly what it sounds like, as is immunity to poison, and as is resist disease. Night Eye is the ability to see in the dark. Demoralized Humanoid will make a humanoid target run away from you. And Shield is just physical damage resistance. Sanctuary is an additional dodge chance for enemy attacks. It's a pretty good effect, but obviously this isn't an ability. It's a power, 50 points for 60 seconds, which you could just get at the Spellmaker. So it's not a very compelling positive. Now, 75% innate fire resistance is very good. You can attain that through enchantments, but it's still good. Dark Elves aren't phenomenal, but they aren't terrible either. There's one other minor advantage to a Dark Elf, and this applies to any race, but particularly to Dark Elves, and that is whatever race you select, when you encounter another member of your race, you get a 5-point disposition bonus with them. Now, that doesn't matter much, but with the exception of Dark Elves, because roughly 50% of Vardenfell's population is Dark Elf, with the other 50 almost evenly mixed between the other 9 races. So that 5% disposition boost across a full half of the game's population is, I would stop short of calling it compelling, but it is a concrete advantage. However, the big reason to play a Dark Elf is for lore and storyline reasons. It's pretty compelling to play the game that way. If you want to go that route, you certainly won't suffer for it. Dark Elves are a fine choice, they're just not the best. I end up going with a High Elf, so I'll skip that for now and talk about Imperials. They have a power called Star of the West, which is quite good. Absorbs fatigue, 200 points on target, but it's a power, so you can only use it once a day, which makes its utility rather limited. The same is true of Voice of the Emperor. Charm, 25 to 50 points for 15 seconds is great, but again, can only be used once per day. They have no abilities, so while they have no downsides, their upsides aren't terribly compelling. Nords. Holy shit are Nords good. They're completely immune to frost, which is a much more common and much more debilitating element than poison is. But they're not done. They also have 50% innate shock resistance. They're the only race in the game with built-in resistances to more than one element, which makes them tough as nails. They also start with 50 endurance if you select a male, which is the most you can get out of your racial selection. They come with a power called Woad, which is 30 shield points for 60 seconds on self, and a 25-point frost damage on touch power. Powers aren't too great, but those resistances are so awesome coming out the gate. Coupled with their high endurance, Nords are a terrific race to select, especially if you're going for a melee character. Let's talk about Orcs. They come with a 25% innate magicka resistance, not as good as the Bretons, but not bad. And they're another of the three races that can get 50 endurance, which is a compelling aspect, of course. And they come with a power called Berserk. Fortify health, 20 points for 60 seconds. Awesome. Fortify fatigue, 200 points for 60 seconds. Awesome. Fortify attack, 100 points for 60 seconds. Awesome. Fortify attack makes you more likely to hit no matter what weapon you're using. But drain agility, 100 points for 60 seconds. Holy shit. What does that mean? Agility governs your dodge chance, your hit chance, and most importantly, your stagger resistance. So the damage you're to hit is canceled out by the Fortify attack effect, but with no stagger resistance and no dodge chance, if you ever use this power, an enemy's gonna hit you, and you're gonna fall down, and then you're gonna be helpless, which makes it absolutely fucking useless. So let's go to Red Guards. The third race that can get 50 endurance, I think both male and female have it. They come with a 75% disease resistance, redundant given the main quest, 75% poison resistance, okay, not awesome, and adrenaline rush, which is unambiguously good, fortifies strength, agility, speed, endurance, and health, 60 seconds, once per day, no downsides, but it's only once per day. Then you have Wood Elves, which come with 75% disease resist, redundant as I said, and Beast Tongue. Command creature, 5 levels for 600 seconds. Once a day power, the effect can be learned at the Spellmaker. Nothing compelling. Then we go to High Elves. I always play a High Elf because they have the greatest magicka potential in the game, which is the biggest difference maker for me in all the races. Here's what they come with. They come with a 1.5x magicka bonus, meaning they have innately 250 maximum magicka compared to a 150 with a Breton and 100 for everyone else. Now, they come bundled with weaknesses. 50% weakness to magicka and fire, 25% weakness to frost and shock, but you can, just like the beneficial effects can be replicated through enchantments, so too can these weaknesses be mitigated through enchantments if need be. And they also come with 75% disease resistance, which is still redundant. But I'm going with a High Elf because I want to maximize my magicka because it's the biggest difference maker in the in terms at the end of the game. Now, we need to go with a male for the endurance aspect. The base attributes, like I said, only one matters, and that is endurance. A female, unfortunately, comes with 30 to the male's 40, which pretty much makes the decision for us. Better base endurance is better. So then just pick a face you like. I usually go with this one. Pick a hairstyle you like. I usually go with this one. And then hit OK to get moving.
Great. I'm sure you'll fit right in. Follow me up to the office and they'll finish your release.
Alright, let's follow him. Now, you can pick things up in the Census and Excise office, but I usually rush through it so I can save the game and then turn around and do other stuff. Now, as soon as we go through this door, the Imperial prison ship disappears from the game, so wave goodbye, we're never seeing it again. Alright, let's walk up to Socusius or Gala.
Yes, we've been expecting you. You'll have to be recorded before you're officially released. There are a few ways we can do this, and the choice is yours.
Alright, answer his questions, generates class. He asks you 10 questions, just like Arena and Daggerfall did. It's worth doing that once for the novelty effect. I'm going to skip it this time around because the pre-made classes are all useless. Even if you're a dedicated role player rather than a min-maxer and power gamer like me, I guarantee you can make a custom class that better suits your needs than anything the game offers pre-made. So don't ever go for a pre-made class. It's dumb. Give him the info, pick from class list. That still locks you into one of the 27 pre-made classes, which is a terrible idea. Always, always, always fill out the forms yourself and create a custom class. Naming it Adventurer is fine. Now, let's talk about what we want to do. I want to make sure that my character has the maximum possible level and maxes out his endurance as fast as he possibly can. That means a few things. Given his racial bonuses and his, you have to take into account racial bonuses, specialization bonuses, major and minor skill bonuses, because, well, let's just get into the nitty-gritty. You have 5 major skills, 5 minor skills, and 17 miscellaneous skills for a total of 27. Every time you raise any combination of your major and minor skills by 5 ranks, you gain a level. Every major skill gets a flat bonus of 25 points. The base level for every skill is 5. Every major skill is boosted by 25 to at least 30. Every minor skill is boosted by 10 to at least 15. There are 3 specializations, combat, magic, and stealth, which each cover 9 of the 27 skills. You get a 5-point boost to each skill covered by your specialization. That couples with your racial bonuses to determine your initial set of skills. We want to be able to gain as many levels as possible because that gives us the biggest possible health pool. The maximum possible level, given that the lowest you could theoretically go is 30 for all your majors and 15 for all your minors, winds up being level 78. That level 78 gives us exactly 5 points of wiggle room, which we will be using. So, understanding that that's the first concern, making sure we can get to level 78 without having to go to jail, that determines a lot of our skill coverage. The second aspect is we need to be able to raise our attributes quickly. Leveling works in this game the same way it does in Oblivion, and that is with multipliers. When you level up, you will be able to raise 3 attributes by a single point. However, you can get multipliers and raise certain attributes by as much as 5 points, depending on what skills you've raised during that level up. You can get multipliers for every attribute except luck. Luck governs no skills, so you can only ever raise luck a single point at a time. However, luck also gives a bonus to all skills, which is, I suppose, how it makes up for it. So we want to have a spread of skills that will allow us to level up with 5 points in 2 attributes plus 1 point in luck at every single level, while allowing us to get to the maximum level. Finally, there are certain critical skills that we'll want to try to keep freely usable without triggering level ups. So with that in mind, we arrive at the following build. We are going to specialize in stealth, giving us 5-point bonuses to the 9 stealth skills. Our favorite attributes are going to be endurance, which we get plus 10 to each favorite attribute, and luck. We want to start luck as high as possible since it can't get any bonuses. Now, let's talk major skill. Let's talk skill configuration, rather. So you get 25 points each major skill, and they increase more quickly. Now, because all the stealth skills got a bonus, and another advantage of a high elf is his racial bonuses are all pretty much limited to the magic tree. That means we can take most of the combat tree and it won't have any additional bonuses, so we'll have that room to get to level 78. So, we want Spear, and just trust me on this, we're trying to get attribute coverage as well. So the best way to level up is to do 10 ranks in a miscellaneous skill, which won't contribute to a level up, but will contribute to an attribute multiplier. And then 10 points in a major or minor, which will contribute to an attribute multiplier and level you up. And then you can raise luck a single point. Spear covers endurance. Blunt weapon covers strength. Long blade also covers strength, but that's okay because strength has by far the most redundancies. Block is an agility skill. Mercantile is a personality skill, and this is where we use our 5 points of wiggle room. Mercantile has a 5-point boost from specializing in stealth, but we can get away with 5 points exactly and still have room to get to level 78, so that's where we do it. In the minors, we will go with Axe, we will go with Medium Armor, we will go with Mysticism, one of the only magic skills the High Elf doesn't have a bonus to. We will go with Restoration, another one he has no bonus with, and we will go with Heavy Armor. Now, this is, if you level up correctly, this does a few critical things. We're a High Elf because of the magical multiplier. Favorite attributes give us 50 base endurance, as high, not quite as high as we could theoretically get, but good enough. We're a male for the endurance aspect. Luck is the second favorite attribute because we can only ever raise it a single point at a time, so we want it to start as high as possible. This skill configuration is designed not so much to make me good at anything at the outset. Despite the way they try to set up character creation, none of that really matters, and they finally figured that out in Skyrim. What does matter is what this allows you to do, given the convoluted leveling system that they have, and the fact that, unlike in Skyrim, if you make bad decisions here and then don't carefully control what skills you use, you can actually hurt your character development, which is insane. You shouldn't have to lock yourself out of using certain skills to make sure that you can level correctly, but this game makes it a necessity, as does Oblivion. So we're focused on that, and what this allows us to do is reach the maximum level, number 1. Number 2, maximize endurance as quickly as possible. Number 3, efficiently level +5 +5 +1 every single level all the way up to 78. And number 4, it leaves certain skills in the miscellaneous category and unrelied upon for attribute boosts, so we can freely use them from the outset. Those skills are Sneak, absolutely, uncontrovertibly vital. The only way to steal stuff. You gotta be able to sneak, and you gotta do it from the very beginning of the game. Security. Gotta be able to open locks. Pretty fucking straightforward. You can eventually get an open spell when you join the Mages Guild or House Telvanni or both, and you buy the spell from them, but you still got to be able to disarm traps, and that relies on the security skill. So if you want to be able to get through dungeons and get all the loot, you got to be able to spring locks and disarm traps, so you need security. Got to be freely usable from the outset. Speechcraft, important for a few reasons. Speechcraft is the way to influence NPC dispositions. A lot of quests can only be completed if you raise an NPC's disposition above a certain level. So we've got to be able to use Speechcraft. Speechcraft also lets you legally kill anybody in the game through taunting, which we'll cover in more detail later on, but got to be able to use Speechcraft. With this build you can. Athletics. I mentioned on the prison ship at the very beginning, we move at about half the speed of the average slug. Athletics is the skill, along with the attribute speed, that lets you raise your movement speed. And this isn't only important for sanity's sake, although trust me, sanity will demand you move faster sooner rather than later. But there are lots of pretty extensive, mostly underwater areas in this game, and athletics also governs your swim speed. So you need to be able to raise athletics so you can get through those grottos without drowning. It's vital, and you don't want to have to walk everywhere. It's just unbelievably painful. So athletics we can freely run from the beginning, which is huge. Armorer. Armorer is the slowest skill to level in the game. It is substantially slower even than Athletics, which is legendarily slow. Armorer, the only real way to make sure it ever gets to 100 is to repair every item you find, both for yourself and off of enemies after every battle. Otherwise, it will just never, ever, ever max out because it raises so slowly. So I try to keep it freely usable from the beginning, and I don't want to have to rely on it because it's so difficult to raise. That's the other aspect. So with this, we don't have to worry about armor. We can just repair things as we find them. It takes care of itself. Nothing is reliant on it, which is good. Unarmored. You want to keep that freely usable because it's almost impossible to avoid taking hits in an unarmored slot, especially early on before you find a piece of armor that covers every slot. So you want to keep unarmored freely usable because you're going to take some unarmored hits and you're going to get some ranks in the skill. So you don't want that to compromise your character development. And finally, alchemy. Alchemy is also fairly difficult to raise, but it's also, especially the way it synergizes with enchant later on, it is your route to power. So alchemy is freely usable from the outset, so you can work on raising it, getting it to 100, making yourself awesome potions. Especially with the burst sign we're choosing, we're going to need to be able to make potions from the outset in order to function. Needed a drink, sorry, I was running out of steam. Making potions is vital, and we can freely use alchemy. Finally, in addition to all those utility skills, we obviously need at least one good way to kill things and one good way to protect ourselves that we can freely use. We accomplish that with destruction magic and light armor, both of which are freely usable. Light armor is particularly good with the Tribunal expansion installed. From the outset, when you rest, you have a chance of being attacked by a Dark Brotherhood assassin. It will be a difficult battle, but when you kill him, he will give you a set of Dark Brotherhood armor, which is the second best light armor in the game, second only to glass. So as soon as that happens, you're going to be very adequately protected with an armor skill you can freely use at the outset. It's huge. We can kill things with destruction magic. And finally, we also do have freely usable alteration magic, which gives us water breathing once we learn the spell, gives us opening and locking once we learn those spells, and allows us to levitate, which we actually have to do at certain points to get through certain dungeons. That can also be accomplished with potions, but it's easier just to be able to cast the spells. So that's our skill configuration. I've got a full leveling plan in my mind. You can also see it if you go to the written guide, but don't worry, I'll tell you every time I level up what I have locked in for the next level up, in addition to whether or not we're going to need to do any grinding. So, one more time so you can see everything. Custom class, male, high elf, specialized in stealth, favored attributes, endurance and luck, major skills, spear, blunt weapon, long blade, block, and mercantile, minor skills, axe, medium armor, mysticism, restoration, and heavy armor. Okay.
Very good. The letter that preceded, you mentioned you were born under a certain sign. And what would that be?
All right, let's talk about birth signs. I'll skip the 2 good ones and talk about the other 11 first. The Apprentice. Fortify maximum magicka 1.5 times intelligence. So that's another 150 magicka. Not too bad, but it comes with a 50% weakness to magicka. Still, not bad. Passive birth sign. Weakness to magicka is easy to overcome. Magicka multipliers are great. The Atronach and the Lady are the 2 I would actually consider using, so let's skip to the Lord. Weakness to fire 100%. Awful, but can be overcome with enchantments. And then you get a spell, Blood of the North. Restore health 2 points for 30 seconds. That's not a bad spell, but why not just go to the Mages Guild and make that spell and not have a 100% weakness to fire? That sounds like a great idea. That makes this birth sign useless. The Lover. Fortify Agility, 25 points. Not bad, but if you want to go for attribute boosts, the Lady is the unquestioned winner there. And you get a Power, Lover's Kiss. Once a day, so utility's already pretty limited. Paralyzed for 60 seconds on target. That's pretty cool, but damage fatigue, 200 points on self. They may be paralyzed, but you're not going to be able to fucking hit them. So, the Lover, pointless. Let's go to the Mage. Fortify maximum magicka, 0.5 times intelligence. It's a 50-point boost to your maximum magicka with no downsides, a la the Breton. Not bad, but there are better ones out there. The Ritual. Spells, Blessed Word, turn undead. Blessed Touch, turn undead. Just buy a turn undead spell. Same with the Power of Mara's Gift, restore health. Just buy the spell. Don't waste your birth sign when you could get something much more helpful. The Serpent, a spell, Star Curse. Poison, 3 points for 30 seconds on touch. Damage health, 1 point for 30 seconds on self. Okay, not only could you just make a poison on touch spell without the damage health effect, but if you're at low levels and you chose a 30 strength, 30 endurance set of starting attributes, that damage health effect is enough to kill you at level 1. That's insane. Don't take this birth sign. It's freaking stupid. The Shadow. Powers, invisibility for 60 seconds on self. Once per day, just get an invisibility spell and use your birth sign on something good. Next, the Steed. Fortify speed, 25 points, no downside. Pretty awesome, especially considering how atrocious your movement speed is at the start. But, like I said, if you're going for attribute fortification, no question you should go with the Lady. This is good, but the Lady is better. That's the bottom line. Let's talk about the Thief. Sanctuary, 10 points, innate. Not bad, but you can get it with enchantments, and there are better abilities out there. But this certainly isn't bad. It's actually somewhat compelling, but you can ultimately negate any need for Sanctuary just by raising your agility, which gives you innate dodge chance. And, like I keep saying, you can use your birth sign on something good. The Tower. You get a spell called Beggar's Nose. Detect animal, enchantment, and key within 200 feet for 60 seconds. Oh gee, I don't know. Why don't you just make the detection spells or get them for yourself without burning your birth sign? Now, Tower Key is a power. Open 50 points on touch once per day. Why not just raise your security skill? Lame. Next, the Warrior. Fortify attack, 10 points. Pretty darn good. Gives you 10-point boost to your to-hit chance with every single type of weapon. Warrior's good, there are just better birth signs out there. But there are no downsides here. Fortify attack 10 points with every weapon is pretty good. Now let's talk about the 2 you might actually take. The Lady. If you're hell-bent on simply raising attributes with 0 downsides, or if you do not care about your magicka pool and you're instead building for maximum health, the Lady is the way to go. 50 points of attribute fortification, lets you max out your character's attributes faster. 25 points of fortify personality is, yeah, okay, personality's kind of a dump stat. It's the last thing I ever raise. But you also get 25 points to endurance. The lady means that if you choose one of the 50 endurance sex and race combinations, get endurance as a favorite attribute and take the lady, you can start out with your endurance at 85, very, very close to the maximum of 100. And that is what you'll want to do if you're building for maximum health. However, the difference between the maximum health build, starting with 85 endurance versus starting with 60 starting with 50 like I'm doing, is only 47 health. At level 78, the maximum health character who started with 85 endurance will have 834 health and only 100 magicka. The character I'm making, at level 78, he will have 787 maximum health, which is only 47 less, but he will have 450 maximum magicka compared to 100 for the maximum health character, which is why we're going to take the Atronach. People always panic about the Atronach because of stunted magicka. Let's talk about that first, the downside. It's much less of a downside than it was in Oblivion. That's number one. In Oblivion, you may recall that your magicka, much like in Skyrim, regenerated in real time just while you were playing. That's not true in Morrowind. In Morrowind, you have to rest to regenerate your magicka, and it doesn't happen for Atronachs. They have to restore their magicka in some other way. They can do it with potions, or they can do it with spell absorption. Atronachs get 50 points of innate spell absorption, and I can't even begin to describe how awesome that is. Spell absorption is one of the rarest, most expensive effects in the game, because no matter what element is coming at you, fire, frost, shock, poison, or magicka, any of them, any kind of spell, you have a 50% chance to just absorb it and use it to refill your magicka pool instead of taking any kind of damage from it. That's huge. It's effectively 50% resistance to all of those elements, coupled with a chance to recharge your magicka. Spell absorption is almost impossible to get to that magnitude in any other way. It's not completely impossible, but spell absorption is amazing, and it's more than enough to make up for stunted magicka. You can refill your magicka either by absorbing spells or by crafting potions, which is the big reason we need to keep alchemy freely usable from the outset, so we can make and carry restore magicka potions along with us. But the other big upside to the Atronach is it has the biggest magicka multiplier at 2.0 times intelligence. That raises your maximum magicka by 200 compared to 150 for the apprentice and 50 for the mage. A high elf Atronach therefore has the biggest magicka multiplier and winds up with a maximum magicka of 450, which is enormous and allows for the creation of truly badass custom spells that lesser characters wouldn't even be able to cast. We're going with the Atronach. It is outstanding. In my mind, you'd be insane to go with any other birth sign. Not even because of the magic aspects, those are cool, but starting the game with 50% spell absorption is just so mind-bogglingly awesome. You'd be crazy to go with anything else. There it is.
Interesting. Now, before I stamp these papers, make sure this information is correct.
So here's our character. Your name, your race, your class, your sign. We start with 40 health. Your starting health takes your strength plus your endurance and divides it in half. That's the only time strength affects your health, by the way. But, so you can see I have 30 strength and 50 endurance. So you add those two together, it's 80. You divide by 2, it's 40. And that's my starting health. Pretty cool. Your magicka is simply equal to your intelligence coupled with your multipliers. So I have a 1.5x from my race plus a 2.0 from the Atronach. So total multiplier is 3.5, which would put me at what? 50 times 3.5 is... No, I'm sorry. It's plus 3.5 times your intelligence. So 3.5 times my intelligence is 175. That's my multiplier, which gets added on to the base of 50 for a total of 225. Now that just raises whenever I raise intelligence. So having more magic is great, but it's not on a timeline. Now your fatigue is interesting. Your fatigue is essentially like your stamina, and it is equal to the sum of 4 of your attributes: your strength, your willpower, your agility, and your endurance. You sum those together and you get your fatigue. That's why every character has a maximum fatigue of 400, because you can get those 4 attributes to 100 each. So right now we have 30 plus 40 plus 40 plus 50 is, in fact, 160. So you can see how all that gets spit out. Let's talk about the attributes now. What does strength do? It affects your starting health, like I mentioned. It affects your carry weight. Every point of... Take your strength, multiply by 5, that's your carry weight. So right now my carry weight's 150. Ridiculously low, part of why we're going to be raising strength early. Your maximum fatigue, it's one of the 4 numbers that goes into the sum. And your melee damage. Now, melee is a little bit misleading. It also determines your damage with marksman weapons, so be aware of that. Your intelligence affects your ability to intelligence determines your maximum amount of magicka. Pretty straightforward. Just your maximum magicka is your intelligence plus any multipliers from your race or birth sign. One other thing that's not mentioned is your intelligence also determines, for non-Atronachs, how long you have to rest in order to regenerate your magicka. Willpower affects your ability to resist magic and your maximum fatigue. So it's in the sum that determines max fatigue. The magic resistance, however, is only for completely non-elemental magic. And effectively there are only 2 spells. Well, not quite. There are a few spells which don't fall under any of the 5 elements. Remember, there are 5 elements in this game: fire, frost, shock, poison, and magicka. There are only a few that don't fall into any of the 5 that you can resist. One of them is paralysis, one of them is silence, one of them is sound, another one is blindness. There are a few others, but most of the things that you are able to resist don't even matter. So that doesn't really matter so much. But the thing it doesn't talk about that is pretty huge is, along with your skill level in the relevant school of magic, willpower influences your chance to successfully cast all the spells you know, which is pretty huge. Agility is a boss hog attribute. Affects your ability to dodge and hit targets in melee. That's right, it affects your dodge chance, no matter what's coming at you. That does include marksman weapons, but it doesn't include spells. Can't dodge spells. It affects your chance to hit a target, no matter what weapon you're using. Affects your chances at successfully sneaking, your chances at successfully picking a lock. And undisclosed in here, it's part of your fatigue summation. The undisclosed thing is your agility also determines your stagger resistance. What you'll see in this game is, if you get hit hard, you'll stumble. If you get hit particularly hard, you'll get knocked down. Raising your agility will increase your resistance to getting staggered and getting knocked down, which is huge. Speed simply determines how fast you can move. That's all it does, but that can still have a huge effect on your sanity. Endurance determines your starting health, determines your maximum fatigue, and most importantly, determines your health gain per level, which is why you need to get endurance maxed out as fast as you possibly can in order to make your health pool as big as possible. Personality determines how much other NPCs like you, and that's really about it. And luck affects absolutely every action in the game, in a fairly small way. That's true as well. Finally, if you look down here, See, I start with no powers and no spells. This is all just where it is. You'll see I've got 30s, except for 5 extra points in Mercantile, and 15s in my Minors. And there are all my miscellaneouses. Cool. You now have a stats menu where you can always view your information. Right-clicking allows you to use your menus. When you are done with them, right-click again to close
Show your
them.
papers to the captain when you exit to get your release fee.
Read your papers by pressing the spacebar while looking at them, then select Take to pick them up. Release identification. For release by Emperor Uriel Septim VII's decree to the district of Vardenfell in the province of Morrowind. Name Travis, race High Elf, class Adventurer. Signed Socutius Urgala, agent of the Satanine Imperial Census and Excise, 16th of last seed, 3rd era 427. You now have an inventory menu where you can see what you are carrying. Like all menus, right-click to use your new menu. You can click and move objects from the world to your inventory. One thing about Morrowind, it doesn't tell you when you're about to steal something the way Oblivion and Skyrim do. There's no red tag, but everything in here is owned by the Census and Excise, and if we try to take anything, it'll be stealing. So, with Sneak sitting at 10, that's just not a good idea. Let's see what's in our inventory. We are toting. Let's make it bigger. There we go. We've got common pants, common shirt, common shoes, and our release identification. Right up there with our stats menu. All right.
Continue through to the next building and talk to Celis Gravius.
He unlocks the door. We'll come back through to get all this stuff later. I'm just trying to get through the tutorial process so we can save, because you'll see we still aren't able to save the game. You should learn how to do combat. Pick up the dagger on the table by activating it with spacebar. We've got an iron dagger. Equip the dagger by dropping it on your picture in your inventory menu. Iron dagger, short blade, one-handed. Now you can see the 3 attack types there. Chop, slash, and thrust. 4 to 5, 4 to 5, 5 to 5. Condition 400 of 400. Yes, items and armor degrade in this game, like in Oblivion, before they got rid of it in Skyrim. Press F to pull out your weapon. Once your weapon is readied, hold and release the left mouse button to swing it. The harder you swing it, the more damage it does, but the more fatigue you will drain. So let's get it out, so you can tell when you've got your weapon ready. Now, first, you can do a quick tap. If you watch the green bar in the lower left, that barely drains any fatigue. We can hold it back, take a bigger swing, which drains a little more fatigue. And finally, let's talk about attack types. This is a chop. If you have always use, remember the always use best attack option, we've got it disabled. So the way you can use the 3 types of attacks, if you stand still and attack, you will chop. If you are moving to either side while you attack, you will do a slash. And if you are moving forward or backward, you will do a thrust. Just bear that in mind. You now have a map menu. It shows you the name of the place you are in and you're facing. So we are in Satanine, here at the Census and Excise office. Check the barrel to your left and get the ring inside. There's an engraved ring of healing in here. Cast when used, restore health 1 to 5 points on self, and it has a charge. Now let me talk briefly about enchanted items. Enchanted items are almost universally better than spells in this game, and I include cast on use items for the simple reason that they don't have a casting animation. They go instantly. Even for Atronachs, the charge refills over time while you're just standing there. Even for non-Atronachs, you don't have to rest. The charge will just refill while you're walking around, and you can get dramatically powerful effects on cast on use items. And finally, every time you use an item, it boosts the enchant skill a little bit. Enchanted items are freaking great, is what I'm really getting at. So let's grab the ring like it wants us to, put it on. You now have a magic menu where you can see all your powers, spells, and magic items. Like all menus, right-click to use your new menu, click the spell or magic item you want to make your active magic. Press R to ready your active magic, then click to cast. So if we look, all we have is the engraved Ring of Healing. But if we equip it and we hit R, we'll use it to heal ourselves. Let's keep going. Press spacebar to talk to the captain. Select topics to ask about them. Don't try persuasion on him. If you're not good at it, he will start to dislike you. First, let me take your identification papers. Thank you. Word of your arrival only reached me yesterday. I am Celis Gravius, but my background is not important. I'm here to welcome you to Morrowind. Release identification has been removed from your inventory. We'll come back and properly talk to him later, just like we'll clear out senses and excise. I'm just trying to do everything I need to do to get outside and save. So talk to him about Morrowind. Yes, you're in Morrowind. I don't know why you're here or why you were released from prison and shipped here, but your authorization comes directly from Emperor Uriel Septim VII himself, and I don't need to know any more than that. When you leave this office, you are a free man, but before you go, I have instructions on your duties. Instructions from the Emperor, so pay careful attention. Ask about duties. This package came with the news of your arrival. You are to take it to Caius Casades in the town of Balmora. Go to the South Wall Corner Club and ask for Caius Casades. They'll know where to find him. Serve him as you would serve the Emperor himself. I also have a letter for you and a dispersal to your name. Your journal has been updated. Directions to Caius Casades has been added to your inventory. Package for Caius Casades has been added to your inventory. 87 gold has been added to your inventory. Goodbye. So let's check the journal. Well, no, we'll check the journal in a minute. So we've got 87 gold now, a package for Caius Casades, and directions to Caius Casades. The directions are the letter to us, so let's read them. Travis, you have been given these directions and a package of documents. Do not show them to anyone. Do not attempt to read the documents in the package. The package has been sealed and your tampering will be discovered and punished. Follow these directions. I'll tell you, there aren't really any severe consequences if you try to read the package, but it's in a cipher you can't read anyway, so we might as well leave it alone and make everybody happy. Follow these directions. Proceed to the town of Balmora in Vardenfell district. Report to a man named Caius Casades. He will be your superior and patron. You will follow his orders. His residence is not known, but ask at the corner club called South Wall. People there will know where to find Caius Casades. When you report to Caius Casades, deliver the package of documents to him and wait for further orders. Remember, you owe your life and freedom to the Emperor. Serve him well and you will be rewarded. Betray him and you will suffer the fate of all traitors. I have the honor to prepare this at the direction of His Most Sovereign Majesty, the Emperor Uriel Septim, Glabrio Bellienus, personal secretary to the Emperor. Cool.
What's this about?
Let's go outside. Press J to use your journal and review what you've been told. You should probably check out Ariel's trade house up on the left. You're on your own now. Good luck. So Ariel's trade house is up there, but let's check the journal. 16 last seed, day 1. My orders are to go to the town of Balmora in Vardenfell district and report to a man named Caius Casades. To find out where he lives, I should ask in Balmora out the corner club called South Wall. When I find Caius Casades, I must give him a package of documents and wait for further orders. And now we can save. So let me make a save. That's a pretty good, solid first video. But let me tell you what I'm going to be doing off screen. I'm going to immediately turn around and head back into the Census and Excise office. Let me briefly talk, well, first, let me briefly talk about Sneak. Sneak, there are lots of bugs in Morrowind. Let's put that out there right now. I'll talk about them as we encounter them and how to deal with them. Sneak is not well-coded at all. Sneak is, you have to successfully sneak in order to raise the skill, which is fine. You do that simply by holding down the sneak key. Hit tab to go third person. You can see when you're trying to sneak because your dude will crouch down. You only get skill advancement when you're successfully sneaking. Successfully sneaking for any length of time is almost impossible to do until the skill is at 90 plus. You can't really raise it naturally by trying to sneak through dungeons. It just doesn't work. You'll never make any progress. That leaves you with the option of training it or grinding it. I believe they probably intended for you to be able to raise it through the early levels with pickpocketing, but pickpocketing, they never finished the coding for it. So pickpocketing is almost impossible to succeed at, even likewise until the skill is at 90 plus and agility is at 90 plus, and even then pickpocketing is exceedingly hard. People have looked at the code strings and figured out what they were trying to do and realized they never finished it, but you can't raise it with pickpocketing either. And the ability to sneak is just absolutely vital because there's so much stuff you need that you just have to steal. You need to be able to sneak when you're out in the world. Now there are ways to make up for it. There are magic effects like Chameleon that you can enchant or cast on yourself that make sneaking easier, but I start every playthrough by grinding sneak to 100 right here in the Senses and Excise office. So we want to make Celis Gravius turn toward this corner.
What's this about?
We can do that by getting him to talk to us and then moving over here. Once he's facing away from this wall, we can head over to this corner, drop in behind him. There is a line of sight aspect to sneak. Ambient light doesn't affect it, but line of sight does. And then we can just wait here, hold down that sneak key, and wait till it hits 100. See, when that yellow symbol pops up, that means you are currently undetected. So right now we are successfully sneaking. He's unaware of us. And just like that, he spotted us. So you can see what I mean by any length of time. If we were trying to steal these candlesticks or bottles or whatever, it just wouldn't work. But that little bit of sneaking, you can check your progress to the next skill. That gave us 15 out of 100 points of progress toward rank 11 in sneak. So while we're off screen, I'm going to just wait the sneak key and let my character raise his sneak to 100. I won't move from this spot. When we come back, some time will have gone by, sneak will be at 100, and we'll move on from there. Until then, this has been the inaugural edition of Let's Play Morrowind. This is not my main project, that's still Skyrim. I just wanted to do something for the channel because I'm so sick and tired of farming random encounters in Skyrim and not finding Hakar. It's freaking killing me, but I still haven't found him. As soon as I do, we'll go back to Skyrim to finish that up. But I figured I might as well start something new while we're waiting. So here we are. Anyway, until next time, hopefully Skyrim. If not, it'll be another installment of this. And like I said, some time will have gone by. Sneak will be at 100. But I'm not going to make you sit through the 8 or 9 hours it takes to grind the skill up. So until then, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please consider liking, subscribing. If you really like my videos, consider sharing. And until then, I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye-bye.